Ana Luisa's story begins with a cake, a sweet gesture that should have been a symbol of kindness. But that cake would end up being the last thing she ever ate. A simple birthday surprise turned into a nightmare. On May 31st, 2025, just days after celebrating her 17th birthday with family and friends, Ana Luisa received a mysterious package. It was a cake with a note that read, "A treat for the most beautiful girl I've ever seen." There was no sender, no signature, nothing. Just a gift from a stranger, or so she thought. But that cake wasn't a gift. It was a death sentence. By the time her family realized what was happening, Ana Luisa was already fighting for her life. And the worst part, the people closest to her had no idea who was behind it or why it happened. This case will leave you with more questions than answers. How could something so innocent become so deadly? Who would want to hurt a 17-year-old girl, someone with her whole life ahead of her? Was it a stranger, a friend, or someone she trusted more than anyone else? I've been thinking about this case for days now, and I still can't shake it. It's chilling, it's heartbreaking, and it's a reminder of just how fragile trust can be. Stick with me, because what happened next will make your stomach turn. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. This story is one you won't want to miss. Ana Luisa D'Olivera Neves was 17 years old when her life was violently ripped away from her. From the outside, she was the picture of innocence and kindness, a young girl full of promise, a quiet but bright light in the world around her. Raised in Brazil, she was the daughter of Silvio Ferreira das Neves, a devoted father, and grew up with a sister who was her closest confidant. Their home was a tight-knit one, built on love, trust, and support. Silvio described Ana Luisa as the very heart of their family. She was the calm in the storm, the one who could always be counted on, whether it was to help with household chores, be a shoulder to lean on, or offer a quiet word of encouragement. Ana Luisa's personality shone through in everything she did. She was a gentle soul, the kind of person who never sought the spotlight but had a magnetic warmth about her that drew people in. She wasn't the loudest in the room, but she had a way of making others feel seen and valued. She loved the simple things in life, like her involvement in the Girl Scouts, where she learned not just life skills, but how to give back to the community she loved so much. It wasn't just about being part of the group for her, it was about making a difference, no matter how small, in the lives of others. Her friends knew her as dependable, hardworking, and compassionate. In a world that can often be harsh, Ana Luisa was a breath of fresh air, a reminder that goodness still existed. Her life was the kind that most people could only hope for, full of family, love, and the occasional teenage joy of looking forward to the future. And she had every reason to be excited for the year ahead, with big dreams and aspirations filling her heart. Her 17th birthday should have been one of those moments, a rite of passage, a time of celebration and new beginnings. The anticipation leading up to her birthday was palpable. She'd spent the days before her celebration surrounded by people who loved her, looking forward to a day filled with laughter, cake, and the love of her closest friends and family. It was a day to mark the milestones of growing up, to enjoy the feeling of being surrounded by those who mattered the most. But that joy, that warmth, was fleeting. What should have been a milestone in her life, one to remember forever, became the stark contrast to the horror that would soon follow. What happened in the days after her birthday was a tragedy no one could have foreseen. Ana Luisa, a girl with so much life ahead of her, was suddenly taken from the world, and from her family, far too soon. What was supposed to be a new year filled with promise quickly became a nightmarish memory for those who loved her. The day after Ana Luisa's birthday, a mysterious package arrived at her home. It was a small, carefully wrapped cake, its delicate frosting almost gleaming in the sunlight. A delivery man on a motorbike dropped it off with a simple, almost casual air. The cake came with a note, nothing too fancy, just a handwritten message, a treat for the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. No name, no signature, just a few words, wrapped in mystery. At first glance, it could have been from anyone. A late birthday surprise, a gift from a secret admirer. It seemed innocent enough, harmless even. After all, Ana Luisa had just celebrated her birthday, and such thoughtful gestures weren't unusual. But the lack of a sender, the anonymity, was unsettling. Still, Ana Luisa didn't think too much of it at first. She returned home that evening and saw the cake sitting on the counter. Her sister had accepted the delivery, and the excitement was palpable. Ana Luisa's eyes lit up. A cake, maybe a secret admirer. She thought it was sweet, literally and figuratively. She had no reason to think otherwise. She eagerly sent a voice message to her friends, reading the note aloud with a laugh, asking, "Who's the mystery sender?" She even snapped a photo of the cake, placing it carefully on her bed, her excitement evident in her words. It was such a small, innocent gesture, nothing to worry about, right? She sent the photo and voice message to her friends, half expecting to find out who had thought of her. But as one by one, they replied, it became clear none of them had sent it. They were all just as confused as she was. No one knew who this mysterious person could be. At first, she laughed it off. It had to be someone who liked liked her. Someone she didn't know was paying attention. Maybe it was an anonymous admirer, or perhaps a friend who just wanted to keep things under wraps. But no one had any answers. The questions lingered, but she brushed them aside. It was just a cake. After all, what could go wrong? But things quickly took a sharp turn. At first, it was just a twinge, a slight discomfort in her stomach that Ana Luisa dismissed as nothing. Perhaps it was just from eating too much. But then, the pain intensified. Her stomach twisted, a deep, gnawing ache that she couldn't ignore. She felt sick, her body was rebelling. At first, it was just nausea, but soon, she found herself running to the bathroom, clutching her stomach as waves of pain hit her. What's happening? She thought, bewildered. How could a simple cake make me feel this way? The more she tried to shake it off, the worse it became. She vomited violently, her body weakening by the minute. The room spun around her, and the sweet, innocent treat that had brought her so much excitement now seemed like a distant memory. Her body was rejecting it, and she could feel herself growing weaker with each passing second. Sarah, who had been at the house for the sleepover, was right there. She watched as Ana Luisa doubled over in pain, looking as if she couldn't catch her breath. She suggested that Ana Luisa drink some water and rest. It's probably just some bad food, Sarah said, trying to stay calm. But Ana Luisa didn't seem convinced. She kept telling herself it was nothing, just a fluke. She had to get through it. But as the hours dragged on, the symptoms became worse. Ana Luisa felt a cold sweat break out across her forehead, and her body grew weaker. Her mind raced, but all she could think was, how could this be happening? She tried to message her father, Silvio, explaining she was feeling unwell, but by the time he rushed home, it was clear things were not getting better. Silvio found her pale, shaking, and in obvious distress. Without hesitation, he scooped her into his arms and rushed her to the hospital. The urgency in his movements, the panic on his face, were enough to send chills down anyone's spine. The night that started with a late birthday gift was spiraling into a nightmare, and Ana Luisa had no idea just how close she was to losing everything. At the hospital, doctors quickly hooked Ana Luisa up to and for, giving her fluids, treating her for what they suspected to be food poisoning. For a brief moment, there was relief. She seemed to stabilize. The color slowly returned to her skin, and her breathing calmed. You'll be okay, the doctors reassured them. It's just a bad reaction. The words felt like a balm to the panic in Silvio's chest. He was finally able to breathe again. They would go home soon. Ana Luisa just needed some rest, and everything would go back to normal. They were all hopeful, convinced the worst was behind them. But in the back of Ana Luisa's mind, a question lingered. Could this really just be food poisoning, or was something far worse at play? The following day, Ana Luisa woke up hoping to feel better. The hospital visit the night before had brought her some relief, and she had been optimistic that the worst was over. But as the hours passed, that feeling of hope began to dissipate. Around midday, something changed. Her stomach churned again, and this time, the pain was unbearable. She rushed to the bathroom, barely able to stand as the waves of nausea hit her once more. She collapsed. Sarah, still staying over, was right there. The moment she heard the crash of Ana Luisa hitting the floor, her heart dropped. Rushing to the bathroom, she found Ana Luisa crumpled on the cold tile, her body twitching. Panic set in as Sarah tried to call her name, but Ana Luisa didn't respond. Her skin had turned even paler, and her breathing was shallow, erratic. Sarah screamed for Silvio. She's gone! She's gone! Her voice was shaky, filled with panic and disbelief. Silvio, who had been in the other room, rushed to his daughter's side the moment he heard Sarah's scream. His heart pounded in his chest as he saw Ana Luisa lying unconscious, her body failing her. Without wasting another second, Silvio lifted her into his arms once again, desperate. His mind raced as he fought to keep his composure, as he ran toward the car with his daughter's fragile form in his arms. The urgency was undeniable. He couldn't lose her. Not like this. The car ride to the hospital was filled with silent desperation. Silvio's hand shook on the wheel, every second feeling like an eternity. His daughter had been fine just hours ago. Why was she slipping away now? What was happening to her? By the time they reached the hospital, Ana Luisa's breathing had stopped altogether. Silvio's heart sank as he felt her go limp in his arms. He rushed to the ER, screaming for help, unable to process what was happening. The doctors took immediate action, rushing her into the emergency room, desperately trying to revive her. The seconds dragged on, each moment more agonizing than the last. Silvio paced the waiting room, his mind spinning in disbelief. Ana Luisa had been fine. She was supposed to be fine. But now, his daughter was fighting for her life, and he couldn't help her. Inside the ER, the doctors fought to keep Ana Luisa alive. They worked quickly, administering medication and performing resuscitation procedures. The sound of the defibrillator echoed in the sterile room, and the sharp beeping of monitors filled the air. But despite their efforts, it was too late. Ana Luisa's heart stopped, and the doctor's frantic attempts to revive her were unsuccessful. At just 17 years old, her life was over. The world seemed to stop spinning for Silvio. His mind couldn't catch up with the horror he was living. His daughter, his precious Ana Luisa, was gone. The warmth of her birthday celebrations, the joy she had shared with family and friends, now felt like a distant memory, replaced by an unbearable emptiness. Silvio couldn't process what had just happened. It didn't make sense. His heartache was consuming him, leaving him a shell of the man he had been just hours before. His daughter, a girl full of life, had been taken from him in the cruelest way imaginable. There was no warning, no explanation, just the sudden, heart-wrenching loss. The hospital staff gently escorted Silvio to the waiting room, his body trembling, his world shattered. The words they spoke to him barely registered. "I'm sorry for your loss." The phrase seemed so empty. How could words ever capture the pain he was feeling? His daughter, the girl who had just turned 17, was gone forever. The family he had held together so tightly, so lovingly, was now broken. And the worst part, he had no idea who was responsible for this nightmare. The investigation into Ana Luisa's death began almost immediately, but no one was prepared for the twists and turns that would follow. The first step was obvious. They needed to trace the cake, the one Ana Luisa had eaten just hours before her collapse. The cake had been delivered anonymously, and that single act would become the key to unraveling the mystery. The Manina Truffa cake shop, the bakery where the cake had been purchased, quickly became the focal point of the investigation. Investigators visited the bakery, hoping for answers. They questioned employees, examined records, and scrutinized everything they could. But as they dug deeper, they were met with disappointment. The bakery had sold the cake to someone, yes, but they had no idea who had purchased it. They confirmed the cake had been picked up by a delivery driver, but beyond that, there was no trail to follow. The shop had no involvement in the poisoning. The delivery had been handled by an independent courier. Next, investigators turned their attention to the delivery driver. They tracked down the motorbike courier who had dropped off the package at Ana Luisa's home. They hoped he might have information about who had ordered the cake, but again, they hit a dead end. The driver had been hired to make a simple delivery and knew nothing about the package or its contents. He was just a messenger in a much darker scheme. With the bakery and the driver ruled out, the investigation began to stall. It seemed like a random act of cruelty, a senseless tragedy that could have been committed by anyone. But the breakthrough came when investigators began to look at the address where the cake had been picked up, an address that led them to someone who had been right under their noses the entire time. The address traced back to Sarah, the very same Sarah who had been staying with Ana Luisa the night she first became sick. The same friend who had watched Ana Luisa struggle through her symptoms. The same girl who had been by her side when Silvio rushed his daughter to the hospital. As the investigation moved forward, it became clear that Sarah was no stranger to Ana Luisa. She had been her best friend, someone she trusted completely. But now, the investigators were staring down a betrayal so profound that it felt impossible to comprehend. When Sarah was brought in for questioning, it didn't take long for the truth to come to light. She was the one who had orchestrated the entire thing. The cake, the note, the poisoning, it had all been her doing. And as investigators dug deeper into Sarah's motives, the reasons behind her actions were even more chilling. What had once seemed like a random act of cruelty now appeared to be an intentional, calculated betrayal. And as the investigation into Sarah's involvement continued, the true horror of the situation slowly began to unfold. 7. The betrayal. The moment they found out it was Sarah, Ana Luisa's best friend, the one who had been with her at every moment, that she was the one who poisoned the cake, it felt like the ground beneath their feet had shattered. How could it be Sarah? The girl who had been there at the hospital. The one who comforted Ana Luisa's family during her struggle, the one who had spent the night with her, watched over her as she felt sick, and was supposed to be there to help, not to harm. The shock was almost too much to process. The person Ana Luisa had trusted most in the world, the friend who had been invited into their home, was the one who had caused her death. When Sarah was questioned, she was calm at first, too calm, almost. She denied everything, claiming she had no idea what had happened to Ana Luisa. She put on the mask of the concerned friend, acting like a victim of the tragedy herself. But investigators weren't fooled. They had already connected the dots. The pressure cracked her. Slowly, she began to break. Her words came out in a quiet, almost detached tone, but they were damning. "I didn't mean for it to go that far. I just wanted to scare her." The confession came in fragments, each piece more disturbing than the last. Sarah had bought arsenic, online, of all places, and mixed it into the cake she had ordered for Ana Luisa. She had planned the whole thing with cold, methodical precision. The cake, the anonymous note, the delivery, it was all part of a sick game to get back at Ana Luisa for something as trivial as a boy. I thought if I scared her, maybe she would back off, Sarah admitted. I wanted her to know she couldn't just take what I wanted. I never thought it would end like this. It was a shocking twist. The poison wasn't meant to kill. At least, that's what Sarah claimed. She didn't want to murder her friend, she just wanted to make her afraid, to show her who had control. But using arsenic, a deadly poison, left no room for mistakes. What Sarah failed to understand was that her so-called warning was a death sentence in disguise. The true horror of it all wasn't just the betrayal, it was how deeply Sarah had manipulated Ana Luisa's trust. Silvio had always welcomed Sarah into their home, treated her like family, trusted her with his daughter's life. And now, the very person he had let into their world was the one who had orchestrated Ana Luisa's death. It was a betrayal of the deepest kind. Silvio's grief was overwhelming, but so was his anger. He had trusted Sarah, given her a place in his family, and she had shattered that trust in the cruelest way imaginable. He had seen Ana Luisa's bright future, the world at her feet, and now it was all gone, taken by someone who should have been there to protect her. It wasn't just his daughter he had lost, it was his faith in people, his belief that he could keep his family safe from harm. 8. Sarah's past and legal consequences. As the investigation unraveled, a chilling revelation came to light. Sarah hadn't just poisoned Ana Luisa. She had tried the same thing before. Weeks before the fatal cake, Sarah had poisoned another friend. The attempt had failed, but the result was the same, the friend hospitalized, vomiting violently, barely surviving. It was a pattern of malicious behavior that Sarah had hidden behind a facade of friendship. It wasn't a mistake, it was a deliberate act. And the fact that she had done it before, without consequence, made Ana Luisa's death feel even more senseless. What kind of person could try to poison someone they supposedly cared about, twice? The answer was far darker than anyone could have imagined. Sarah was driven by something much deeper than jealousy. It was a deadly combination of low self-esteem and a toxic need for control. Ana Luisa had something she wanted, something as trivial as a boy's attention, and Sarah couldn't handle the idea of losing out. She didn't want to be second place. And in her twisted mind, poisoning Ana Luisa was her way of taking back control, of asserting dominance in a world that felt out of her reach. But instead of scaring her, she killed her. As for the legal consequences, Sarah faced little. Because she was a minor, Brazil's juvenile justice system only allowed for a maximum sentence of 3 years in a juvenile detention center. 3 years. That's all. 3 years for taking a life. 3 years for causing a family's devastation. 3 years for something so horrifying that it left the world reeling. It was a slap in the face to Silvio and his family. How could someone who had committed such a terrible crime face only a few years of rehabilitation? How could the system let Sarah off so lightly? The outrage was impossible to ignore. 3 years was not justice, not for Ana Luisa, not for Silvio, and not for anyone who believed in fairness. Sarah's sentence was an insult, a reminder that sometimes the system fails those who need it the most. Silvio and his family were left with a bitter, lingering sense of injustice. Sarah would serve only a fraction of the time her actions truly warranted, and when she was released, nothing would stop her from harming someone else. And as for Sarah's future, it remained uncertain. Would 3 years be enough to change her, to rehabilitate her? Or would the same jealousy and darkness that drove her to murder continue to fester inside her, waiting for the next victim to cross her path? For Silvio and his family, the fear of what might come next was just another wound that would never heal. Silvio, Ana Luisa's father, has spent the past few months grieving the loss of his daughter, but amid his heartbreak, he has one clear message for all parents: protect your children. Never trust a stranger, no matter how innocent their gesture may seem. Silvio has urged other parents to teach their children about the dangers that can come from seemingly harmless acts, like accepting gifts or food from unknown sources. His daughter's life was taken by something as simple as a cake, a seemingly sweet and harmless surprise. He had always trusted his daughter's instincts, trusted that she would be safe in her world. But Ana Luisa never saw the danger. Now, in the wake of her loss, Silvio's grief has transformed into a powerful call to action. He wants to ensure that no other family has to experience the pain that his family is living with. No one should have to bury their child because of a gift meant to show kindness. His plea to parents is simple, but urgent: teach your children to trust their instincts. Don't let them ignore red flags, even when something seems innocent. And most of all, remind them that not everyone who appears friendly is trustworthy. The story of Ana Luisa is tragic and heartbreaking, but it has a deeper message that we must all learn from. Her life ended because of a single, anonymous act, a reminder that the world isn't always as safe as we want to believe. By sharing her story, we not only honor her memory, but we also raise awareness about the very real dangers of trusting strangers. This is a story that needs to be told so that other families can be warned, educated, and empowered to keep their children safe. The story of Ana Luisa raises uncomfortable questions about trust, about friendship, and about the darkness that can sometimes lie behind even the most innocent-looking gestures. It's hard to wrap your mind around the idea that someone who was once trusted, someone who was loved, could turn into the very thing that causes harm. This tragedy reminds us of how fragile trust can be, and how important it is to protect the ones we love, no matter how harmless the situation may appear. It's a story that will haunt you, not just because of what happened, but because of how easily it could happen to anyone. All it took was a cake, a note, and a heart full of jealousy. As we reflect on the horror of Ana Luisa's death, it's impossible not to feel the weight of what was lost. A life full of potential, a bright future stolen in the blink of an eye. The cruelty of this act isn't just in the poison, it's in the betrayal of trust, the manipulation of a friendship, and the senselessness of it all. Ana Luisa's story is not just a tragedy, it's a lesson that we all need to take seriously. The world is not always as safe as it seems, and sometimes the danger is closer than we think. This is a wake-up call for all of us to be vigilant, to trust our instincts, and to protect the ones we love. As we say goodbye to Ana Luisa, we send our deepest condolences to her family and hope they can find some semblance of peace in the midst of their heartbreak. They didn't deserve this. She didn't deserve this. But her story will live on, and it's up to us to make sure that her death wasn't in vain. Call to action. I urge you to share Ana Luisa's story. Spread awareness. Teach your children to be cautious. Let's all do our part to ensure that something like this doesn't happen again. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and always trust your instincts.